Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kayla. I'm autistic. Currently I make videos related to my autism. Haven't uploaded in a while because I was coming out of burnout. If you saw my last video, still kind of in it, but definitely improving. I'm also a mom to an 11-month-old, so right now getting videos out is pretty difficult. But I enjoy making them. I think that it's been therapeutic for me and helps me kind of process things that are going on in my head, which is usually a lot all the time. This is going to be part 2 of my medical history drama. If you have not watched part 1, then I'll link it down below, and you can watch that before this one if you want. Starting where I left off, I was about 14, 15 age, still in a very tumultuous emotional situation. It's the first time I saw a therapist, and amongst all that, kind of self-medicating with various things for various different reasons. My menstrual cycles were always really intense. I didn't know any different. I thought that everyone experienced their periods like me. I didn't think it was anything to complain about. It didn't seem like I could complain about it. When I was 17, 18, I mentioned this to my primary care physician, and he definitely said that the symptoms that I was experiencing were abnormal and that I should get it checked out by a OBGYN, which is the first time I'd ever seen one, and got worked up for endometriosis, which, if you don't know what it is, I will put some information in the description box for you. It basically involves a lot of pain and other issues surrounding your period. And the two ways that they go about doing a diagnosis is by symptoms alone. So you start on various different hormone therapies to hopefully help alleviate some of your symptoms. But I had not reacted to birth control or any kind of hormone medications, a lot of medications actually, in the past, so I didn't really want to just start taking a bunch of hormones and see what happens. So the other direction is actually kind of an exploratory surgery. They go in with an endoscope vaginally and on the outside of your abdomen to look and see if they see endometriosis, and it would look like little bloody, like red blotches, like inflammation and stuff like that. It would be very obvious if I had it. So go to have the surgery, no endometriosis. So on the one hand, that's good. On the other hand, I still have these symptoms without an apparent cause. And in the surgery, he did find some weird adhesions, just signs like there's been inflammation for some reason. He didn't really know. The doctor didn't know what would have caused it, but he diagnosed me with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or dysmenorrhea, which is fancy for painful periods and several other symptoms that you have to hit in order to have that diagnosis, and it's all surrounding your menstrual cycle. So after all that, when I'm about 20-ish, I start getting chronic strep. So streptococcus is a bacteria that infects your throat, strep throat. Very painful, swollen tonsils all the time. I'm pretty sure I was having night sweats at that time, so like fevers off and on, taking antibiotics, and it not really getting rid of it, and just dealing with this like chronic pain in my throat for several years. Finally went to see an ENT who, tried a different antibiotic, waiting, seeing if it would get better. Because I don't know if you know where this is going, but my option was, if I want this to go away, I would need to get my tonsils out. At the late age of 22 years old, And the doctor actually told me, this is going to be the worst pain you will ever feel in your entire life. And now that I've given birth, he was wrong. Labor was worse. It was still pretty bad. It was like labor tonsillectomy. It's like right there. And believe it or not, I was also dealing with gut issues at the same time. So around the same time, I was also worked up with the GI doctor, gastrointestinal doctor. Basically said I've had gut issues like my whole life. I had severe constipation that I needed to go to the ER for, pain, bloating, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Sorry. Just lots of gut issues for a very long time. So I got like my records from there, and I think I first saw the GI doctor when I was like 21. So it was around the same time that I saw the ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor. He decided the best thing to do would do an endoscopy and a colonoscopy at the same time, just to kind of see what was going on in there. So I agreed to it. It's pretty low risk and not like a huge deal. And they put you under a twilight sleep. It's not like you're being intubated or anything. Had that done when I was still in college, and did see some inflammation, but nothing like crazy, nothing serious, nothing really to do other than, you know, some diet changes. Started me on a protonic, which is like an antacid pill that you take every day to help with nausea and heartburn, stuff like that. There's a lot of people in my family who have celiacs, which is basically a gluten autoimmune issue, which they tested me for and was negative. But I decided to start a gluten-free diet anyways, which actually did help some of my symptoms. So I just kind of stuck with that since then. And that was the first time I saw the GI doctor. So fast forward a little bit, I just graduated college. So December 2012, in January of 2013, I scheduled my tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy. He was not kidding. Getting, like, that surgery as a kid, they bounce back in like 2 seconds. It's insane. Anybody out there who also had a tonsillectomy in adulthood, yeah, like I know. I know what you went through. It was probably 6 weeks before I was sort of like reaching some end of my recovery. But for 4 of those weeks, pain was like at a 10 and then a 9, and it was at a 9 for a while. And then like after that like 6-week mark, it definitely improved like significantly. But it was pretty rough for a while. But no more strep, and I haven't had it since, so success. So the next 4-ish years or so isn't confusing, I guess. I'm gonna try to make it like, I don't know, as easy to understand as possible. And I will mention here too, obviously I didn't know I was autistic. I didn't know about my sensory issues. I didn't know that maybe my body would, I don't know, react to trauma the way that it did. Because I think while I had all these like medical issues going on, I think a big part of me also thought that there was just something wrong with me because of my autism and not knowing that's what it was. And not really being able to verbalize my feelings very well, not being able to even understand what I was feeling most of the time. Just like contributed to this like fucking soup of shit that is my like medical history. Like it definitely had an impact on how I experienced pain, how I dealt with medical trauma, recovering from surgery, and sort of like putting myself through these medical procedures in the hopes that like it would make me feel better, if that makes sense. When I was 24, I went on a month-long backpacking trip to Thailand, which was amazing, and crazy and just insane and relevant, and you'll see why. A lot of culture shock coming back from that, but had this trip, came back. Over the next 4 years after that, so 24, go to Thailand. Over the next 4 years, all these symptoms just like start happening. They're all over the place, and I'll talk about a few of them, that it made me see like specialist after specialist, like different doctors trying to like work up what the heck was going on with me. Several ER visits for stomach pain, severe stomach pain, like to the point where I thought I was dying. Actually, for the pain scale, it's like labor, that stomach pain, and then tonsillectomy. So like it was bad. Just feeling completely insane and having doctors look at me like I was insane a lot, and getting these diagnoses that just A, were wrong, and B, just made me feel completely invalidated, and like what I was experiencing wasn't real. I started to be like susceptible to infections, it seemed like, more easily. Like my immune system, like I didn't have one. I got the flu twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year at one point. I had UTIs, like what felt like constantly. I had yeast infections, like a lot. I was getting these infections just seemed like so easily, and I like had no immunity and no immune system. I felt like I was chronically ill pretty much that entire time. And on top of that, I also had these inflammatory attacks. That's the only thing I can honestly think to call them. It felt like the flu, but I didn't actually have the flu. So like my flu test would be negative, but I would look like I had the flu. Just pain and inflammation in my face, stomach, skin. I would break out in these horrendous and awful rashes that sometimes happened after I got sick, so they were kind of said to be these like post-viral reaction rashes, but sometimes they would just happen and I didn't know why. It felt like my body was attacking itself. I started to notice hair loss. My hair was thinning, like visibly. I would get night sweats. I'd wake up in just a puddle of sweat. Very, very fatigued and tired all the time. There was several weeks that I basically went to work, came home, slept, went to work, came home, slept. I would sleep whenever possible and only would get up for work or obligations that I had to go to that were mandatory. Also on top of that was stomach pain and nausea and food sensitivities. I slowly had to cut stuff out of my diet to the point where I had a very restrictive diet that didn't include dairy, soy, wheat, alcohol, like a very healthy diet, but still I would get anxiety about eating because generally I would still get a stomachache or feel bad after eating, even if I was eating something super healthy. I got lots of blood tests. I got checked for Lyme disease, HIV, rheumatoid arthritis, lots of autoimmune tests, blood tests that I got. all were fine. And while I'm experiencing these like physical symptoms, feeling like I'm crazy, seeing doctors, them telling me I'm fine, I'm healthy, like I'm fine, you're fine, when I didn't feel fine at all, like, and my mental health just continued to just take a nosedive through this entire like 4-ish years, like to the point of me not wanting to be alive anymore, because I was just in so much pain every day and so tired of dealing with it, and so tired of not having an answer, and terrified that this is how I was going to feel for the rest of my life, because I was in some kind of pain every day, physical pain, whether it was my stomach or my joints. My joints would be inflamed, my skin would be inflamed, I'd be dealing with an infection, you know, something every day. And on top of all the physical symptoms, you know, my sensitivities were still there. The emotional issues from, you know, certain social difficulties and breakups and relationships and friendships and all of that, it was just so much and just really difficult to deal with. When I say difficult, like, I mean like the worst time of my life, like the absolute worst. So I did see a rheumatologist eventually who diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. Again, if you don't know what that is, I'll put some information down below. And he said this within like 15 minutes of talking to me. So, saw my GI doctor a couple times after that. Didn't really go anywhere. My mental health got so bad that I eventually saw a new psychiatrist who prescribed me an antidepressant, which kind of brought me out of a fog a little bit and made me realize that no, I'm right. There's something wrong with me. They just haven't figured it out yet. I'm sick. I don't know what I'm sick with, but I'm not crazy. So my mental health was like, it's all like a big soup, like cauldron of crap going on. But once I started to feel better emotionally, I got that confidence a little bit. That was like trusting myself and trusting that I knew my body and trusting that I knew that something was wrong. So I'm about 28 now, started a new job, still dealing with all this, and, you know, still frustrated, but trying to like live my life. This is TMI, but I finally figured out what was wrong with me, and I saw it in the toilet. It was a roundworm, which is a parasite. Super common parasite, mind you. Told you the Thailand thing would come back. A lot of these infections, parasitic infections, roundworm infections, people call them tropical infections because they tend to occur most heavily in those tropical areas, like Thailand. They were all up in there. Just trust me, it was a very intense infection going on. In addition to the roundworms, I also had giardia, also very common, but I had both. So I had this co-occurring infection just like making me chronically sick for years. I went to my PCP with the evidence. Don't need to get into the details of that evidence, but agreed with me and started me on albendazole, which is a antiparasitic drug. Works great. I ended up having to take like 3 separate doses to get everything out of me, but after that first dose, honestly, it was like I didn't know how terrible I was feeling until, like, I'm assuming the majority of the worms were killed in that first dose, because I went from feeling like if it's a scale from like 0 to 10, and 0 is super horribly crappy and awful, and 10 is like the greatest ever and like I can do anything. Like I was probably hovering at about a 1 to 2 on the daily basis. Right after that first dose, like the next day, I jumped up to like an 8. It was, I can't even describe it. It was just amazing, and finally getting some relief. Well, that actually concludes, for the most part, my medical history drama. Left some stuff out that I didn't really feel like was super relevant. I've been the most interesting patient several times, which isn't something you want to be. Medicine and pathology are actually just super high up there on my special interests, and I've been interested in it since forever. So this is a good segue into a life thing, but I have decided to go back to my original plan for life goals, and that's to try to get into medical school again. This will be the 3rd time that I'm applying. The first time I applied, I ended up getting 1 interview and got denied. I did not get in. And I didn't get any interviews the second time I applied. It kind of broke me. Assumed that I was right, that I was not smart enough to get into med school. That was like when I was 24. Studying for the MCAT again. It's been, about a decade-ish since I've taken my prereq classes, so that's kind of what's been taking up my time, plus being a mom. Videos will come out when they come out, but I really wanted to finish this segment. That's all for now. Hope you enjoyed it, my weird medical stuff. Love yourself, be kind to yourself, and catch you on the flip side.